the league obviously is scoring at the most efficient pace it's ever scored at. I would describe that to some degree, just like we did with that Kings video, as the league catching up to Golden State. The league catching up to Golden State. What I mean by that is the more teams borrow the idea that, hey, split cuts are really hard to defend. Hey, constant motion is really hard to defend. Hey, when you pass the ball and cut and go back door and then come out the other side on a baseline exit screen and all that, that's really hard to defend. And if we empower players to kind of play and move and shoot and handle the ball on the run, the Kevin Huerter is Klay Thompson, if you will, but also, by the way, Kevin Huerter is probably a better passer and ball handler and things like that. The more you put those guys out on the court, right, the more that's what populates your lineup offensively. And if Golden State is running the exact same sets that they've been running with the kind of the exact same type of shooters, it's one of those things where, like, the Warriors' absolute efficiency stays the same, and the rest of the league's absolute efficiency goes up. There isn't the same relative advantage because other teams are kind of coming in and borrowing from what Golden State is doing, but Golden State's doing a very similar thing, if that makes sense. First of all, do you buy that before I throw some data at you?
Well, in a nutshell, you're saying that the light years ahead comment was actually pretty true when it came to their offense a few years ago. Like, their offense was light years ahead, but now, there's a wormhole that appeared and the league is right there with them. They caught up when it comes to the actual on-court strategy that they're using, right?
To a degree, yes, that's what I'm talking about. It's not as we mentioned, there's a lot of other things going on. There's the dribble handoff actions and three-man games and using all the Mike D'Antoni concepts and pistol, and then the last video we did where you've got all the backdoor cutting and all these triggers, the 45 cuts and baseline. There's just a lot more movement going on and a lot more action versus like stationary stuff, spread pick and roll. And I think that has brought everyone up to speed. Let me throw a number at you. In 2018, the Warriors' offensive rating with Steph Curry on the court was 123. 2018. And that was the best in the league. Curry had the best on-court offensive rating in the league in 2016, 2018, 2019, and he was top 5 in 2017. What a slacker. But this season, he is only in the 84th percentile. I say only, right? So keep in mind that Golden State still has had a good offense with him on the court. They still had those positive offensive indicators that we talked about. You just said Draymond and Curry together are +6. That's not really bad per se. It's just not in that championship dominant vein that you mentioned earlier. And so this year in 2023, that 84th percentile, Cody, is 118. So from an absolute perspective, 5 years ago, the Warriors were 5 points more efficient with Steph Curry on the court than they are today. The difference is the league average offensive rating in 2018 was like 7 points below where we're looking at right now or something. So I do think there's something offensively to this idea of like the Warriors stuff with the players that are out there is not automatically going to be +10 or 10 points better than the league. So as the league moves up to 117, they just automatically float up to 127 or 128. They're taking the same shots. It's the same shooters. It's still Steph Curry and Draymond Green and Klay Thompson. When the Warriors came along and just kind of swarmed the league 2015, 2016, you watch them play, it felt like a different thing. The speed at which they get into their actions and the movement and the level of precision with the fans will take offense to that because they throw so many turnovers on their actions. But it's like Draymond Green, Andre Iguodala, Andrew Bogut, they're out there just diming up these guys left and right. Backdoor cut, pull up three, Klay Thompson on the curl, Klay Thompson in the corner. Klay Thompson's got 37 in the quarter. Outside of the finals, Harrison Barnes is spotting up and making threes. It was a lot. It felt like an avalanche compared to watching other teams. If you took that same offense now, the exact same offense, and you put it in the league, even with those guys in their prime, it wouldn't look that different than these other top offenses that we're seeing. And that's kind of the mental clarity for me to hammer home this point where it's like there's an absolute efficiency to offenses in basketball. I think historically this has come up with like Michael Jordan and Kobe Bryant and players like that. If you're going to take a ton of mid-range shots, even if you're really good at hitting like 50 or 52% of them, you're going to have a slightly different shot diet if you want to hit this like 67% true shooting that we're seeing. What's Jokic at? He's at 68%. I mean, Kevin Durant, 65%. Like, you're going to need efficient threes. You're going to need more free throws because it's just almost impossible to be that good of a shooter from the mid-range. If you're Shaq, you got to be up at like 67 to 70% on your field goals if you want to actually rise with the rest of the league, and I think that's a little of what's going on here.
So something that I tracked a little bit. I went back to look at the history of this Warriors dynasty to see how they performed, and I pulled the two guys that I think are like the bedrock of the Warriors dynasty. Right? I looked at Steph Curry and Draymond Green. What happens when these two are on the court? Going all the way back to 2015, their first championship. When those two were on the court, they played 2,100 minutes together. They had a plus 18.5 net rating when they were on the court together. 2016, they played 2,400 minutes together. They're plus 19 together. Plus 19, all right? This is a good duo. 2017, Kevin Durant is there. They're plus 18 again, 2,000 minutes. And then we get some injury concerns. They're not playing as much together, but still in 2018, they're about plus 13. 2019, they're almost plus 15. So these are some really big, healthy numbers. Like from 2015 to 2019, none of them are below plus 12. Plus 12.7 is the lowest one of them. And then, of course, we have the injuries. Curry plays like 80 minutes or something like that in 2020. 2021, Curry's back. They play together. So they play 1,700 minutes in 21. They have a net rating of 6.4. And if I'm not mistaken, that's the year that they got knocked out in the play-in round by the Grizzlies. They lost to the Grizzlies or the Lakers?
The Grizzlies, yeah.
They lost to the Grizzlies. Wow.
Well, they lost to both. They lost to both. They were the seventh best team in the West. Yeah.
You're right. That's what I was confused about. So they didn't even make the playoffs there, right? Plus 6.4. Last year, they win the championship. And again, limited minutes, about 800 minutes together. Those two have a plus 13.6 net rating. All right, so it's right back to what we're seeing around 2018-ish, okay? This year, again, when they're on in 800 minutes, they played together more this season than last season, plus 6 again. So this indicator, one of these indicators that show how powerful, how thriving this Warriors team is, plus 6 is right around what they were in 2021 when they didn't make the playoffs and couldn't make it past the play-in. And I'm not saying this is indicative of everything. And I know people are talking about, their starters are playing well. And if you look at 5-man lineups, they look great. But when you just isolate these two guys, Draymond Green and Steph Curry, the numbers aren't anything to like freak out about. Other teams aren't looking at that being like, oh, we got to be terrified of the Warriors. So I don't know. That makes me a little bit nervous if I were to be a Warriors fan, looking for indicators of hope, Ben. Indicators of hope.
Thanks for listening. You can find the full episode of this Thinking Basketball podcast on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, or wherever you enjoy podcasts.